Ladies and gentlemen, we do have a major update as it pertains to the current situation within the Middle East between Israel and Iran. Last night, Eastern Standard Time, it came out that Donald Trump said in a Truth Social that he wanted the people of Tehran to evacuate. There were huge traffic jams as people were fleeing the city, as it looks like Trump is ramping up the pressure on to the Iranians to potentially maybe force a ceasefire. Emmanuel Macron came out last night after Trump abruptly left the G7 dinner and the summit a little bit early to go back and to tend to the current situation. Macron said, well, yeah, Trump wants to do a ceasefire. That's why he's leaving. And so people got excited. But then Trump comes out and says later last night, Macron of France mistakenly said that I left the G7 in Canada to go back to DC to work on a ceasefire between Israel and Iran. Wrong. He has no idea why I am on my way to Washington, but it certainly has nothing to do with a ceasefire much bigger than that. Whether purposefully or not, Emmanuel always gets it wrong. So in looking at this, I don't know why Macron would lie. You could say, to me, there's a few different ways to look at what's going on right now. We can be optimistic about it, or we can be real about it. Now, in terms of being optimistic, you could say, well, based off of the activities we're tracking with the United States sending a bevy of weaponry to the Middle East and potentially readying to join this fight with Israel, because if Israel wants to accomplish their goal, which everyone at this point believes is a regime change, they're going to need, even just destroying the nuclear facilities, they're going to need some serious U.S. weaponry. They're going to need the B-2s, the amount of payload that they can hold, the amount of ballistics, the capability. The U.S. is going to have to be involved. Now, with all what's being reported of this transit to the Middle East and these refuelers going to the Middle East and the aircraft carrier that's powered by nuclear energy going to the Middle East, you wonder if this was set up like, well, Israel was going to do a preemptive attack. They were going to get struck back. And then the United States was going to act like they were going to completely destroy Tehran, which is basically what they're acting like right now in terms of what the administration is saying, telling everyone to get out. Now you've got China telling their citizens, leave these places. It's not safe. You've got Russia saying the same thing. So everyone is readying for this major attack. Trump publicly saying, leave, that's not going to be good. We told them to make a deal, basically insinuating they're about to get hit extremely hard, whether it's by Israel or by the United States. Well, if you look and you read between the lines at the current movement of some of these U.S. planes and heavy weaponry, I mean, it seems like the U.S. could be involved in this. The question is this a full pressure campaign onto Tehran and Iran as a whole to agree to something that the United States wants, which would be zero enrichment? It was reported that there was, I mean, we've got the Axios article right here. Trump team proposes Iran talks this week on nuclear deal and potential ceasefire. Vance, Trump, and others possibly talking with Iran sometime. I mean, right now it is Tuesday, so maybe this is insinuating Wednesday or Thursday there's going to be some type of talk on this with Iran, basically looking at a potential level of devastation to their capital that would be extremely, extremely brutal. And so this maybe is the pressure tactic of the administration, and they're calling this the last-ditch effort before a major attack that potentially would also involve the United States and not just Israel. So if you want to come at this from an optimistic lens, because there are still reports like this. I mean, it was reported earlier yesterday that Iran wanted to talk about maybe a ceasefire, like an immediate ceasefire. They were ready to come to the table. Now it's being reported this, then Trump denies this. So there's all these conflicting reports. And we're just going to have to see how this plays out. We hope it ends up being a ceasefire. I will say there are a lot of negative things that have come out just on a micro level with Trump and him. It's anyone that's like anti-neocon, he's against. Tucker Carlson says this is not a good idea. Trump is being advised by bad people that are pushing him into this war. It's going to be horrible for the administration. Carlson is 100% right. Everybody knows this. Anyone can see it. And I understand people are like, well, Iran, we don't want them to get a nuclear weapon. We want as little countries as possible to have nuclear capability. But the sacrifices would be in terms of entering this war, which if you're talking about Iran, they are a big country. They've got 90 million people. This likely would not end quickly. You would be dealing with ridiculously high oil prices. There would be a cascade effect and potentially higher inflation just off of that alone. But that's not the worst part at all. The worst part would be another war within the Middle East. That's one of Trump's campaign promises. No new wars. We still don't have a resolution to Russia-Ukraine. You still have the situation in Gaza. And now you've got this. This is a big problem. That's what Tucker Carlson was trying to say. And Trump calls him kooky and says, oh, you don't have a TV deal, so you're nothing. It's like, dude, come on, really? So you see stuff like that. But that's just what Trump is. He's a little bit bullheaded, and he doesn't like being questioned on certain things. And so Carlson, who's a supporter of Trump, Trump probably took that really negatively, and he's angry about it. But you've also got the whole thing with Tulsi Gabbard, where Caitlin Collins is on Air Force One, and she asks Trump, and she does. I actually have some videos of this. She says, well, what about Tulsi Gabbard releasing a report in March saying that, yes, we know Iran has 60% enrichment, but they're not working to develop a nuclear bomb. Trump just says, no, I don't believe it. It's not true. I think they're developing one. So you can see the narrative and the fear-mongering. If there's a major U.S. strike, they're going to come out, they're going to say, we know, it's confirmed, they have a nuclear bomb, we had to do this to protect the world. That's what they're going to say. Because they have to somehow swing this as a positive, as like, oh, we're acting in response. Israel does the preemptive strikes. It's still extremely vague. There's nobody that's confirming anything with a nuclear bomb. Netanyahu says, oh, Iran has enough enrichment to make 6 nuclear bombs. Well, their last enrichment reading was 60%. That's not 90%. And if you've got Tulsi Gabbard in March saying, well, no, they're not developing a nuclear bomb at this current point, and it would take months and months and months for them to actually, based on their current development, to get there, which honestly, if they are at 60%, it would take them about 3 or 4 weeks. But she was saying they're not actively trying to develop one. And I know people say, well, no, it's false. A few months ago, they said they found another Iranian nuclear site in the desert, and it's 2,500 acres, and it's massive. And I mean, this is unbelievable. They're trying to justify a U.S. attack on Iran, and people are just not buying it. And I said this would be bad if it happened, and I hope there's something to where this is the maximum pressure campaign by Trump. But how is there going to be an agreement here? If there's any type of ceasefire and peace deal, which it was being reported they were going for some type of ceasefire along with a nuclear deal happening at the same time. That's what Axios said. Now, Axios, a lot of these news outlets have been wrong on a lot of these reports, or technically they're right because they'll be leak stuff on purpose that's the information is wrong, but it's a diversion from whether it's the administration, whether it's Iran, whether it's Israel. You'll get a lot of that as well. But the overall point here is that, look, we don't want a significant long conflict. We want this over as quick as possible. Maybe it's maximum pressure, but this would not appease Israel at all if they agreed to some type of nuclear deal. I mean, unless it was so slanted, but even then, they want regime change, which is going to be brutal. And I think the red line is troops on the ground probably, but that means full use of B-2 bombers. That means full use of heavy weaponry. It's just no U.S. troops. That's what I would imagine, although I don't even know if that's true, honestly. But, I mean, at this point, you've got Trump. Reports that I reached out to Iran for peace talks are fake news. If they want to talk, they know how to reach me. It says it's highly fabricated fake news. They should have taken the deal that was on the table. So Trump is speaking, like this is over. Like it's not happening now. He keeps saying they should have taken the deal, signaling there's no current negotiations, and we are now that could be strategy. This is all public stuff, so this is public posture by Trump, or it could just be Trump is done and it is going to happen. They are going to strike Tehran, and it's going to be heavy and it's going to be brutal, and they're going to go after the nuclear enrichment facilities, and we'll have to see if that ends up happening. But Trump right now is saying there were reports last night there was going to be some type of a talk. That's why Trump was returning. Why would Macron lie about that? I don't understand. So maybe Trump was just angry that he said it. It doesn't seem like something that somebody at the G7, the leader of France, would just decide to, I'll just make this up. the reason Trump left, oh, let me think. Oh, is because of like what? It doesn't make any sense. So I think it is true to a degree. This is maximum pressure. Trump probably didn't want it leaked because it weakens his position, because now people know that he might want a ceasefire. I'm trying to be optimistic. I am trying to be optimistic. I don't know how Iran would really accept this unless they're pushed to the absolute brink and they think their regime is about to be overthrown and they say this is the only way we. But then, why would they give up enriching uranium? That makes no sense. Trump says that Iran is very close to possessing a nuclear weapon. That was in response to the question, like they were like, well, Tulsi Gabbard said no. What do you think about this? Your own intelligence is saying they're not close. And then Trump says, oh, no, I believe they're very close because Netanyahu told me. I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically, honestly, probably what it is. So, and obviously Netanyahu is looking for any reason to justify U.S. involvement. That's their golden goose. They need the U.S. involved if they want to penetrate some of these mountainsides and into some of these caves and into some of these underground nuclear facilities. They need the B-2 bombers. They need the payload that they hold, and they can't do it themselves. So if you really want to get rid of all of the nuclear facilities, they are going to need significant U.S. support. So that's why we're wondering. And then you've got J.D. Vance, and I'll just summarize this. This reads as like, well, Trump is justified if he ends up striking Iran. That's what basically this statement is from J.D. Vance. Vance has been quiet on it. He puts out this statement. I did read all of this, and I was a little bit bewildered at what Vance was saying about civil uranium enrichment, saying that they could somehow like have nuclear energy and all of this stuff. Let me see if I can find it. This is what it is. Second, I've seen a lot of confusion over the issue of civilian nuclear power and uranium enrichment. These are distinct issues. Iran could have civilian nuclear power without enrichment, but Iran rejected that. Meanwhile, they've enriched uranium far above the necessary for any civilian. Well, see, the thing is that's the same thing. To have nuclear energy, you need around 3% enriched uranium. He's acting like there's some other form of nuclear energy that doesn't involve it. No, this is what it is, and this is what maybe. I mean, I don't know what I would love to know what Iran's offer actually was in terms of the amount of enriched uranium they would be able to have. The 3.67% uranium enrichment, that's civilian nuclear energy. You need to get to 90% to be able to have nuclear capabilities, like a nuclear bomb, a nuclear weapon. So he's saying civilian nuclear power and uranium enrichment. Well, you have to enrich uranium to get the nuclear energy. And it's around 3%. So it's the same thing, but it's just a different level. They're at 60%. I agree with Vance. They've enriched a lot farther. That's confirmed by the independent International Atomic Energy Agency. So it's been confirmed by them. And here, even Vance says it right here. The International Atomic Energy Agency. But this is the prelude. This is Vance saying, well, Trump's well within his right no matter what he does, because, they're going to swing it. The second that they strike, they're probably going to be like, well, we had intel, they had a bomb. They have to use justification for this if they do something in terms of that. The other question is where is China on this? There's been reports China supporting Iran. They get a lot of the exported oil goes to India, goes to China. It's going to be significantly impacted if Iran is engaged in a long, wide-scale conflict in this regional war. So this is a big problem. I mean, if this ends up being significant in terms of the length of it, especially considering Trump has basically staked his political identity to no new wars, and especially a Middle Eastern war after we got out of the whole neocon era of the conservatism, the MAGA movement rose, and now we're seeing Trump. I mean, there is just no reason to sink your legacy over this at all. This idea that, oh, a country 8,000 miles away may or may not have a nuclear bomb. My intelligence is telling me they don't, but Israel, who directly benefits from the United States getting involved in this war, they tell me that they do, so I'm going to believe Israel. I mean, how about Pakistan and what they said? Boy, you want to talk about, oh my goodness, what if they have a nuclear bomb? What about Pakistan? Pakistan said, and this is being reported, that If Israel used a nuclear bomb on Iran, Pakistan would use a nuclear bomb on Israel. I'm not saying any of this is good. I'm not saying more countries having nukes is good. But a lot of the countries that we don't like have nuclear bombs because it's 2025. And a lot of these countries are going to have the technology and the capacity to develop nuclear weapons. It's unfortunate. But us playing world peace on a happenstance, well, maybe they might have one, when Trump's own intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard's coming out with reports saying, no, they're not currently. And look, you can say, well, that's ridiculous. Of course they're enriching. They're at 60%. I agree. But to stake and to have another situation in the Middle East, I just don't see how this is positive unless it has to end extremely quickly. We need it to end very quickly. And Trump said that he wanted it to be over one way or another. He said, I want it ended. I want it done. And so you also have a former U.S. commander, Kenneth McKenzie, saying, I wouldn't be within 5 kilometers of Fordo at this point, which is one of their main enrichment sites that potentially will be targeted by the B-2 bombers because of where it's located, the topography, and also with where it is underground. You've got radar data showing multiple U.S. military aerial refueling aircraft heading to the Middle East, escorting fighter jets. This is Trump with Tulsi Gabbard talking about her intelligence report on the Iranian nuclear development.
Mr. President, you've always said that you don't believe Iran should be able to have a nuclear weapon, but how close do you personally think that they were to getting one? Because Tulsi Gabbard testified in March that the intelligence community said Iran wasn't building a nuclear weapon.
I don't care what she said. I think they were very close to having.
I don't care what she said. I think, and you know what? It's so sad because Tulsi's such a valuable voice, and it's been reported that, you know, on the initial strikes of Israel doing the preemptive strikes against Iran, Tulsi really wasn't involved in terms of being inside the important meetings and the situation rooms, and so it's very disheartening. It seems like Trump is distancing himself from people that are anti-Middle Eastern war, and he's I mean, this is just what I'm looking at. I really cannot sugarcoat this. I don't know what people want me to say. It is what it is. And so maybe this is a big pump fake by Trump, but there's only so much I can say until it gets to the point to where it's like, okay, there's really... it just does not look good with what Trump is saying. His public rhetoric in terms of these people that are anti-Middle Eastern war and him getting very angry about that, and him cozying up to neocons, and my hope is that this is averted, and this is what Trump says, what he wants out of the situation: an end, a real end, not a ceasefire, an end.
What specifically is better than a ceasefire? What are you looking for here?
An end, a real end, not a ceasefire. An end.
So something that would be permanent.
Yeah, or giving up entirely. That's okay too.
Are you close there? Is that possible in the next 24
Why not?
hours?
Certainly possible. Complete give up. That's possible, yeah.
So Trump is insinuating he wants Iran to give up. What does that mean? Give up on any uranium enrichment? Give up in terms of their government, them having a regime? I mean, I don't know what that means. Give up in terms of them striking back against Israel? Maybe that's it. But this is a situation, it's kind of like how Putin is dealing with the Ukraine ceasefire talks. He's saying, we're not doing a ceasefire. That's what Putin says. And Trump is saying, well, there's not going to be a ceasefire if there's going to be a deal. I mean, again, we look at these reports and it's like, they're right here. They're talking about a nuclear, but what does a nuclear deal even look like right now? I mean, there would have to be Trump would have to do a full 180 on what he's portraying publicly to have a nuclear deal with Iran at this point. That's about as simple as I can put it. And maybe that's what he's doing. Maybe it's just all public bluster and it's all for negotiating leverage, and we can look at this from a positive lens. But when Macron said that, why would Macron lie? I mean, Trump is at the G7. He's scheduled to be there, I don't know, what, 2 days, 3 days, whatever it is. He's scheduled to be there multiple days, and he's forced back. And Macron says, I mean, obviously they had a dinner for like 2 hours or whatever. He says he went back because he was potentially going to negotiate some type of, likely, it would be deemed an emergency ceasefire with Iran to stop it. I mean, we just saw something, and it's not the same thing because obviously we're more in bed with Israel, but I'm just saying in terms of the way the war is developing in the context, there was a situation between India and Pakistan. It was rapidly escalating. Pakistan, it was reported, was on the verge of potentially going nuclear, and it was immediately averted with a ceasefire. I'm not saying this is the same situation, but I'm saying these things rapidly evolve to where it takes a 180 turn in the span of 12 hours. So we don't know. We can't overreact to singular news reports one way or another. The point is, maybe this is a maximum pressure campaign, but it's going to have to be Trump telling Israel, you're not going to get what you want. Can Trump do that? Because if you do a ceasefire, in terms of, I mean, it just depends with if Iran is willing to play ball. Apparently yesterday it said they were. They said they were going to agree to less uranium enrichment. Maybe that's 2%. The problem is nobody's going to believe them either way. Any Zionist in the United States is going to say, well, they're just going to keep enriching in other places. They're not going to report their enrichment levels. Okay, well, that's why they didn't like the Obama deal. But this is the thing, is Trump was going to be able to do a better deal than the one Obama had, undoubtedly. It would include way more oversight. It would potentially include lower than 3.7% enrichment, maybe down to 2%. Although I don't know if Iran would accept that. Probably not. Maybe they would accept it now if the United States is positioning B-2 bombers that could potentially devastate their capital. Maybe that's why Trump is doing this, to force cooperation, to force flexibility from Iran in these negotiations. That's why it was reported yesterday Iran was willing to be flexible on their uranium enrichment levels. If Iran's on the verge of getting bombed to hell, they're more likely to pivot off of their initial ask during negotiations. So the hope is that that's the reason this is happening. But I mean, if Iran, Trump is speaking in past tense. He's saying they should have accepted the deal. That's saying that it's over. We will be bombing them. I mean, to me, that's what it reads. You could say, well, it's Israel who's going to be doing it, but the goal is to destroy all the nuclear facilities. Israel cannot do that. They need U.S. weaponry to be able to penetrate deep enough, especially at Fordo, and that's the one they're really targeting in terms of the nuclear enrichment facilities. And so this is why we stress it's so important to hopefully there's some type of ceasefire. Hopefully this is I mean, I know Trump denied it, but why would Macron lie? There's no reason for him to lie, to blatantly lie. There's just no reason. Obviously, Trump didn't like that it got out because maybe he loses negotiating leverage now that it's public that he potentially wants to do this. I don't know. But it just seems like, based off of the public sentiment, based off of who Trump is listening to right now, who's advising him, now J.D. Vance coming out with a statement basically saying Trump is justified. Iran is the one enriching. They're the aggressor. Trump's going to do what he has to do. I support him. It reads like Trump can do strikes and I'm justifying it. That's what it reads from Vance's tweet. At least that's what I read from it. So this is all developing, and you know what? Maybe it's a ploy by Vance. It's not cope, I'm being honest. This could be a ploy by Vance to also act like, yeah, he's going to strike and then Trump does a deal. We don't know. We really don't know. I mean, you know, there's a lot of these reports that come out, and so half of the stuff is probably 80% of it's false. Just that's how it is with all this intel. And these are like, it's Axios, it's Wall Street Journal, it's New York Times. They all report stuff that's just because they hear it, and a lot of it is just deception, or it's leaked on purpose to point people into one direction. But I think, why would Macron, who was having a dinner with Trump leaves because of this, and then he says, yeah, he was going to negotiate maybe a ceasefire, and then Trump says, no, that's not true. I just don't understand why he would lie about that. It just doesn't make sense. So we'll see what happens, and I think there still is a chance to salvage it. There still is a chance, because you know, if they're meeting and there's nothing that, because Trump said yesterday, everyone leave, like everything, it's about to go down, nothing happens. And now they're talking about meeting later this week. Now Trump denied it. Trump did deny it, but there's going to be a chance here to where the problem is Iran apparently is willing to play ball. It's being reported. Who knows if that's true? I mean, but Iran maybe we'll agree to a 2% enrichment. I think we got a great deal. We got Iran can enrich to 2%. This is great. If you know, let's just get this done. You know, we'll get it done and it'll be fine, and we'll get out of there. I mean, that's. But I don't think the administration wants that. To me, it seems like Trump, they're going to bomb Tehran, and then they're going to say, well, we have confirmation they were developing a nuclear weapon. That's how we justify it. I mean, Trump is already basically saying and being bullheaded about it. I don't trust my own intelligence, who gave out a report that said they're not developing one right now. And look, you can disagree with that. You can agree with it, whatever. You know, we know if they're at 60%, they're at 60%. If they're at 60%, they're probably a month away, they're 3 weeks away, or they're already there and they've developed in bases to where they're not reporting. That's probably what it is. Or if you believe, I mean, you could be at 60%, but not actively, and that's what Tulsi's report was. It was they were at 60%, but they're not actively trying to develop one. But 60%, Vance is right, it is way above of the civilian level of around 3.7, 3.8% when you're talking about civilian use, when you're talking about nuclear energy, things like that. So, I mean, there's a lot to take in, but either way, guys, make sure you like the video down below. Also, follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.